Thanks for having the shir a bit later. I had to go to shul, so I'm going to just say something. They needed a minyan. I would have been that if I wasn't there, they wouldn't have had a minyan. I was the 10th guy. And sometimes in life we worry about a panosa, we worry about shidduchim and other things, families, many issues, and sometimes we get very worked up about it. But if you do something like a mitzvah or something good, and you help people out, it outweighs all your worries. I mean, I know it's temporary, but if you look at that and you help someone say kaddish, or you do something to help somebody, it gives you a sense of satisfaction and fulfillment.
It does.
That this is a good thing to do. And so like what I say to people, if they're upset about something and something's just not going, put a couple of rand in the charity box for I promise you, it'll change your mood.
Yeah.
So that's what happened to me. They needed me, and I went. And not to blow my own trumpet. I don't go every day. So anyway, just one thing here from this book, which we haven't gone. Important the comparison between compassion and pity, but we'll get to that. We'll just see what the essence of compassion is. It says there are three signs that distinguish the Jewish nation. They are compassion, shyness, and doers of kindness. Whoever possesses these signs are worthy of belonging to the nation. And that comes from Yevamot, which you guys, you guys haven't, I think you've done it.
Or yeah, I haven't done Yevamot. It looked extremely hard.
Yeah, it is extremely hard. So basically, so you see it with like when the tragedies like that, the disasters like the earthquake in Turkey, Israel sends these rescue teams. They send, I'm sure they send to Haiti, they send all over the world, they send rescue teams. Just because it says that, like it says, that's just built into us. What it also says, if we don't have certain character traits, then it's a question if we're actually Jewish. If we don't have certain but that's just Jews have compassion and should have compassion for ourselves and for other people. So
what they say, Kevin, just one thing, that what they say is that those Jews that go hectically off the derrick are from the Arab Rags, from that crowd that came out of Egypt. You know that crowd that converted. They were non-Jewish.
Arab Rav.
Yeah. So the ones that converted. So all the trouble that we have, all these people are from the Arab Rav. They're not from the original, like the serious problems we have, you know. These guys doing like hectic stuff and stuff. We think that's what we think. That's what Rabbi Yosef Mizrahi pretty much says. But he is extreme, so we don't know. But my gut, I've also heard some other top body saying the same thing, and my gut feel is that is the case. So.
Okay. Well, I think George Soros is definitely one of them.
Yeah, he's got Soros, that's for sure.
Yeah, he's an absolute mumser that.
And you know what they do also?
Profit-making piece
of absolute disgrace. He absolutely is.
And then when people criticize him, they use the authors not. People criticize
him. He's responsible for so many murders. You got no idea for what he's doing, eh? Thousands of murders. He's like a little Hitler going on there. Not even a little.
And he's a self-hating Jew, and causes anti-Semitism. But then when people criticize him, like guys like Ron DeSantis and Trump, then they call them anti-Semites. All of a sudden, I mean, Soros is actually flipping Jewish anti-Semite. Never mind people criticize. I mean, that's a disgrace because it's and I think he's actually, one of his foundations is behind some of these protests here. New Israel Fund, they're funding a lot of it because they pay for stages and big screens and equipment that what's that with microphones and what do you call it? The PA systems and all of that.
Yeah.
Someone's paying for that. And it ain't the government, tax money. So some of the useful idiots don't realize that the people who will stab them in the back are loving all of this. And they're doing their work for them.
Absolutely,
yeah.
if you're a lefty Jew who hates the Jews and prefers the Palestinians and everybody else who's anti-Semitic,
Yes, and I'll talk to you guys privately off camera about something. Not a problem. Anyway, so I'm just answering it. Actually, the guy said I think it's not convenient to have a lesson.
I hope we have.
Okay, Damon, you can start. I'm just typing a message.
You want to cancel the share if it's going to cost you revenue. I don't want that.
No, they're not having it. It's not good. And it's a last minute thing. We're having it on Wednesday next week. It's fine. No. Go ahead. We're not having it. The guy just cancelled. It's not convenient for his son.
Okay. All right.
Or it's not convenient for his son or moon.
Sun or moon, exactly. So,
my son's a star.
That's especially when he looks at the moon, Arthur.
Yeah, I have no words. All right. All right, let's go on. All right. So let me just give you a bit of a bottom line is that we said in the daf yesterday, in the 98th daf, already on 98, is that basically that Rabba turned around and said, look, one who burns a loan document of his fellow is not liable to pay. Or if he says to his fellow, upon being asked, he says, just I've burnt mere papers of yours. Okay, and all that means is that since the document has no inherent value other than the paper it's written on, if you see it as an abstraction, no actual damage has occurred. So his act did deprive the creditor of his ability to collect the loan, but that's merely what they call grama, causative damage, for which one is not liable. Okay. Now, the Gemara notes that Rabba exempts him only because there's no actual damage and not, and you're not liable for causable damage. Okay. So Rami Bar Kamma objected. He says, what is the case to which Rabba refers? In other words, if there are witnesses who know what is written in the document, let them write for him a proper document, meaning all you have to do is get together both the witnesses that attested and signed to witnessing the agreement between the creditor and debtor, get the creditor and debtor together, and whoever was the maniac that burnt the document, it's irrelevant. It gets to be redrafted again. And if there are no witnesses who know what was going on or written in the document, then how do we know what was written in it? In other words, how are you going to make the burner of the document liable for that amount? Because you don't know what amount was written in it. That paperwork was destroyed. So the Gemara answers, because that was an argument as to why Rabba said that. In other words, you can either reconstitute the document or got no evidence of the amount to which to sue the person that's burning it. So the Gemara says, look, Rabba says something different. Accordingly, let Rabba's ruling be interpreted as referring to where one who believes him regarding the amount that was written in the document. So Rabba says, according to Rabba, have to deal with a case where the parties believe each other with regards to the amount stipulated. In terms of when that would ever occur, it's very rarely that you find a debtor and a creditor agreeing on it, because in many cases it could be that the debtor burnt the document because he didn't owe money to the creditor. It might not be a third-party burner. So Rav Dimi Bar Chanina said the ruling of Rabba that one's not liable for burning the loan document of his fellow is actually contingent upon a matter of dispute between Rabbi Shimon and the rabbi. If you remember, guys, Rabbi Shimon says something that can cause a benefit or a loss of money is considered as money, and you're liable for burning the loan document of your fellow. According to the rabbis, which is the general consensus, is they say that something that can cause a benefit or a loss of money is not considered as money, and therefore it's considered Brahma, causative damage, and you're not liable for burning the loan document, because it's not as if you burnt an asset, you burnt a concept of a method to collect that asset. Okay? So in other words, what they're saying is that the loan document has no intrinsic value, and it's an abstraction. Okay. Now, the Gemara objects. Why? Because Rav Huna, the son of Rav Yeshua, said, one could say that what you've heard about Rabbi Shimon, that he holds that something that can cause a benefit or loss of money is considered as money, is only with respect to something that is inherently money, as in the following example given by Rabbah. Because Rabbah says, if one stole chametz before Pesach and someone else came along and burnt it, if he actually burnt it during the appointed time for burning chametz, he's not liable to pay. Why, guys? Because that was the correct mandate, is that you have to burn chametz during Pesach. So obviously you're burning something with money, you're throwing away Scotch whiskey, or you're selling it. And that's not the matter that we're talking about. We're talking about the commandment about if it's burnt after Pesach, meaning what happens is let's put it like this. You're having possession, you steal chametz, and you're having possession of during Pesach, which renders it unfit to be returned to the original owner after Pesach, because you cannot own chametz, cannot benefit from chametz. Therefore, if the original owner sold it to another party, that's certainly not a problem. But if the robber took it, is there liability that he has to return it? Or can he turn around and say, look, here's your whiskey, what I've stolen is returned to you? Meaning, it's a conceptual damage that's occurred. Why? Because the quality of the whiskey has not diminished. The actual whiskey can still be found. It's the concept that you're not allowed to own chametz during Pesach that renders it forbidden after Pesach during Pesach. And therefore, if it's conceptual damage or indiscernible damage, as Arthur quite rightly correctly said, is that considered damaged? Okay. So he's not liable to pay, because we are all, it depends if you're holding according to Rabbi Shimon and the rabbis. But according to Rabbi Shimon, he has to pay. Why? Because something that can cause a benefit of money or a loss of money is considered as money. He's liable. Now, what that basically means is that it's still an abstraction or indiscernible, but that would disagree with our Mishnah, guys. But according to the rabbis who say that something that can cause a benefit of money is not considered money, is not liable. So that seems to be the consensus of the Mishnah. Share something with if you look at the Mishnah, that's going by the general rabbinic conception, which is Rabbi Meir says that all chametz and Pesach had passed it while it's in the robber's possession. When an animal in the transgression was performed with it, or became disqualified before being offered on the temple altar, or an animal that was about to be stoned, the robber may say to the original owner, behold, what is yours is before you take it back as it is. Seems like Rabbi Meir, general rabbinic opinion is that if it is discernible damage, then you can return it to the original owner as it is, and you're not liable. Okay? But that's not Rabbi Shimon's opinion. And we seem to hold a bit more according to Rabbi Shimon, who says that, look, caused this personal loss, and even though it's an abstraction, you deserve to pay for it. Okay? Now, according to the rabbis, it's certainly not the case that there's liability. So what we are saying is that, do we actually say that Rabbi Shimon holds that as well as, since it caused a benefit or a loss of money, it's considered as money? In other words, it's saying is that, are you liable for burning a loan document? So you might say, well, it's obvious here. So it's not so obvious in a certain context, because you're dealing with two issues here. You're dealing with an issue of garmi or grama. So grama is the causative damage, which is indirect damage. And you've got garmi, which is direct damage. Let me give you an example. If you burn somebody's field, that's garmi. That's direct damage. Okay? Because you've set alight the asset and you can see the effect of the loss of that asset. If you're talking about groma, you're talking about indirect damage, where you're burning somebody's ability to collect on that asset, which is indirect damage. We also have another issue with regards to delayed time period, which I read about after we learned, meaning that there's one thing we've learned a concept that if you damage somebody and at the end of the day, they can walk relatively unscathed for a period of a few days. I don't remember Sanhedrin exactly how long. I think it could have been 24, 48 hours or 72 hours, something like that. And they didn't show any exhibited signs of brain trauma or whatever. If they die like a certain amount of time later, like a week later, whatever the case may be, there's a delay, and therefore you're not liable for death penalty. If your blow struck them directly and then they were rendered damaged, then in that case, that isn't a time delay. So time delay also plays a part. Yeah.
Is this not the one where also with the slave, like the slave that got killed, and if he lives 2 days, you don't owe him? Similar concept like that.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. But it would apply, I suppose, with anybody, that if there is a certain amount of delay. You see, the reason why I never brought up the issue of the slave is because if you kill a slave, it's like there's a kofir, and the reason that it brought up a slave in other cases is your ox killed a slave. So do you pay the family, pay the owner of the slave? But the fact of it is, a slave is a human being, and you're liable to the death penalty of the slave. Just because he's your property doesn't mean that he's a human being. So I think this was very well remembered. And as Kevin said, he doesn't like to blow his own trumpet, but now he is.
Very good, Brad. I thought
I'm the only one that knows about that, Damon.
Yeah, here we go.
That's very cute. That's very clever. So Arthur's got an excellent memory. That's exactly it, Arthur. So those are some of the issues. So one of the other issues is that would we agree with Rabbi in the case of the korban? And would we agree in the case of whiskey? Because what you're dealing with there in the case of whiskey is that you keep it during Pesach and you return it to the original owner. Okay, as a Jew, you kept it during Pesach and you return it to the original owner. Now, you're dealing with a tangible asset. It's not an abstraction. Whiskey is whiskey. The abstraction is it prohibited for benefit? That's the abstraction. Whereas with regards to a loan document, the abstraction is in the actual paper itself. Did you burn mere paper? Did you burn the ability of a creditor to collect? So that the Gemara is wanting to suggest that there might be two different cases. Okay? So in order to get clarity, we look at Amimar, who said, the one who judges the laws of Garmi exacts for the burning of the loan document the value of the valid loan document. What does he mean? It means the full amount that was written in the document. That's what you collect, because you deprived the creditor to collect from the debtor with that mechanism, that legal mechanism. And one who does not judge the laws of Garmi exacts for the burning of the loan document the value of all paper. So all we are saying is as follows, is that because the novelty is that it deals with something that's now altogether forbidden benefit and becomes valueless. Okay? So what we are saying is that, I'll just give you a source, is that there's a damage called grama benezikin patur, which means causation in matters of damage is non-liability. I'll repeat that. Causation in matters of damage is not liability. So Rashi is of the opinion that the term grama, which is indirect or causative, and garmi, which is direct, are one and the same. That's according to Rashi. The source of it is Bava Basra 22b. But according to Rabbi Meir, causation in matters of damage is actually liability. And the Gemara's dictum that one is not liable must be attributed to those who disagree with Rabbi Meir. Okay? And don't judge the laws of Garmi. So that's why in our Mishnah, why we're bringing up Rabbi Meir, because it's authored by Rabbi Meir, our Mishnah. Okay? So Grami and Garma is now dealing with a separate issue. Dealing with an issue of direct damage and abstraction. So this is where it becomes a little difficult. I'll show you now. So if we share our Mishnah, it says Rabbi Meir says with respect to actual goods that have been damaged, that we can see the tangible damage. It's not a abstraction, whereas teruma that becomes tamei, there's non-liability. Okay, but this here is a bit of a difficulty because Rabbi Meir feels that causation in matters of damage is actually liability. And the Gemara's dictum that is not liable obviously is attributed to those who disagree with Rabbi Meir and don't judge the laws of Garmi, in other words, direct damage. So the problem is that the halacha is that we do judge the laws of Garmi, which is good. In other words, one is liable for all forms of causative damage. So not all opinions agree with Rama, guys. And that's what I wanted to show you, is that this issue of indirect damage is not always agreed by all parties because it's been bothering me for a while. So the other Rishonim that disagree, and they distinguish between two separate terms. And they maintain that Rabbi Meir holds that one is liable only for Garmi, but not for Grama. In other words, for direct damage, but not for indirect damage. So they explain Garmi and Grama as referring to two different categories of causative damage. Okay, there's disagreements, etc. But the general approach is that when damage results directly or immediately through one's actions, its category is Garmi, which is direct damage. But when there's some sort of indirection or delay, it's known as Grama, which is obviously there's no culpability for it. Do any of you guys have questions before I go on? Guys?
Presume not, sir.
Okay. Are you ready to be questioned, or do we just go on? Okay.
I think the ones that haven't responded should be questioned. No, I'm joking. Carry on.
Okay, so all we are saying is here, okay, so the Gemara relies on a certain incident. There was an incident revolving the burning of a loan document, and Rav Ram pressured Rav Ashi and exacted for the burning of the loan document the entire amount written in it from his most superior properties, like the being used for images. So all this Gemara is trying to end off and says not everybody agrees with Rava, that if you burn something that's non-discernible, that all of a sudden you've got no reason to claim. Do you get what I'm saying? The question that I have is, in our Gemara, it seems to indicate that Rabbi Meir holds one not liable for indiscernible damage and only for discernible damage. But in the commentaries, it says that he holds by causation in the matters of damage of non-liability for the rabbis, and that Rabbi Meir says that there's actual liability. So that's the part that's confusing, is that certain of the commentaries say that you're liable for that indiscernible damage according to Rabbi Meir, and the rabbis not. But our brisa seems to say you're not liable for, according to Rabbi Meir, for abstraction. Okay. But anyway, the bottom line is Rav Ram pressured Rav Ashi and exacted the amount for the burning of a loan document. So what's this proving? This is proving that you can actually claim on a loan document. So why do they bring up this particular example? There might be hundreds. It's because it's used the most extreme example. Why? Rav Ashi burnt a loan document in his childhood, and Rav Ram exacted from him the entire amount written in the loan document. Now, I tell you where this is quite strange, is that generally you are exempt for 3 positions. That was if you're mad, if you're mentally deranged, if you're a minor, and guys, what was the other one? Guys?
If you're unintentional. I mean, not if it's indirect.
No. We have categories. Is if you hand
non-liability.
If you hand an open flame to a minor, a deaf mute, or somebody that's mentally.
Ah, yes, I remember this. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Okay. So what they're saying is here, as a child, Rav Ashi shouldn't be liable, and Rav Ram actually exacted from him the entire amount of the loan document. And even the poskim generally agree that the general consensus is that when a minor grows up, he's not held liable for something he did as a kid. He wasn't aware. But Rav Ram is saying to him, you are now, if you want to do teshuva, you should pay for it, actually. You should pay for it. So here we see an extreme case where even a minor is made to pay for something, but not only to pay for something, but to pay for an abstraction. What's that abstraction? Is to pay for the loan document he burnt by having to pay him back with his most superior properties, like the beam used for images. What do we mean the beam used for images? Is that if you have to carve forms and images on a beam, you choose a beam of the most superior wood. So he's saying, just like that Rav Ram made Rav Ashi pay for it from superior property, meaning on an abstraction of a loan document. So we're saying this is proof against Rabbah, that not everybody holds that even it's a proof against Rabbi Meir in our Mishnah, that for non-discernible damage, there's no liability. Do you see what I'm saying? So what is non-discernible here? There are 2 aspects. The one given in our Mishnah is one that the physical deterioration doesn't occur. And here that we're giving in the Brisa, we're talking about a abstraction where coins themselves become either discontinued or they become depreciated in value, or alternatively, you're talking about writing a concept of what is owed and that mechanism to collect on a document. You're not talking about an abstraction in terms of a spiritual prohibited benefit. When we're talking about the case of Pesach and Chametz, we're not even talking about something that's indirect. We're talking about a spiritually far more lateral thinking concept of non-benefit post-Pesach. So how do we know that? Because there's a clause of the Mishnah that reads, once Pesach passed by it while it was in the robber's possession, the robber may say to the original owner, behold, what is yours is before. Meaning, okay, the chametz became prohibited for benefit and presently worth it. Worth what? Worth nothing, but it's still worth Scotch whiskey in the sense that he hasn't damaged the whiskey. So he's discharged his obligation because he said, look, I fulfilled the Gemara edict, which says you have to return what you steal, the same condition that you're stealing it, because that's what it says. You've got to return what you stole. So he's saying, listen, I've done it. But what we are saying is here is that not everybody agrees, because at the end of the day, it's worthless now, even though the physical object has not changed any form at all. So how is it that the robber can say to the original owner, what is yours is before you? So I want to say, who starts the clause of the Mishnah? Who's the Tana that taught with respect to articles that are forbidden for benefit, behold what is yours before you? So Rav Chisda said it's a Mishnah authored by Rav Yaakov. In other words, it's not the current one. We're trying to compare this one of Rav Yaakov to the one of Rabbi Meir that says that at the end of the day, if you make something teruma tameh, you can return it to the original owner as is. So we're saying this particular one with regards to Pesach was also mentioned in our Mishnah, but what's this Mishnah that you can return it as is? In other words, is there one apart from Rabbi Meir? And there is. There's one authored according to Rav Chisda by Rav Yaakov that said if a robber takes chametz and passes it back to the original owner after Pesach, and the robber was a yid, then even though it's useless to the original owner, he has to accept it because he hasn't damaged the whiskey. So we learned in a brisa, in the case of an ox that killed a person, before its guilty verdict was reached, if the owner sold it, it's sold. If he consecrated it, it's consecrated. If he slaughtered it, its meat is permitted. And if the custodian returned it to its owner, it's deemed returned. After its guilty verdict was reached, however, if the owner sold it, it's not sold. If he consecrated it, it's not consecrated. If he slaughtered it, its meat is prohibited. Okay? So why? Because if the owner got it back from the custodian, Rav Yaakov said it's how do we say this the easy way? Even if the guilty verdict was reached, it's deemed returned. Why? Because there's no actual damage done to the animal. Yes, the animal will be killed and then is forbidden by benefit for Hanoah, but you can't discern it because a sentence was passed, according to Rav Yaakov, that there's no discernible damage to the animal yet. It's yet to transpire. In other words, it's Rama, indirect. It is going to happen at a delayed point. But the rabbis don't hold like that. The rabbis hold that if sentence is passed, you can't return it. So we are saying here that maybe the rabbis hold that we don't say with respect to forbidden things, behold what is yours before you. And that's only the opinion of Rav Yaakov. Do you see what we're saying, guys? In other words, the rabbis are saying you cannot return chametz back to the original owner afterwards if, as a Jew, you kept it, because it's worthless. And Rav Yaakov would seem to hold like Rabbi Meir, which holds like Rava, that says, well, basically, what have you returned? You've returned the article in the state you found it. You've your biblical obligation of returning it in the same state. So even if the animal had a death sentence, hasn't happened yet, the death sentence, it will happen, then you can't benefit from the animal. But you can say to the original owner, look, I returned your animal, alive and well. Fine, it's yours. So the argument would seem to be that the rabbis hold against Rabbi Meir, and that Rabbi Meir's alone opinion. Does that make sense? Okay, so Rabbi rejects Rav Chista's contention, and we're going to see what he actually says as far as that's concerned. He said, look, it could be that that's not the argument. It could be that everyone, even the rabbis, say with respect to forbidden things, what is yours is before you. But there's a dispute with respect to the robber who returns chametz that became prohibited on Pesach. Okay, so we're saying that there seems to be a discrepancy with how the rabbis hold. When it's a case of returning an animal that has the death sentence on it, they say you can't do that. But with regards to the robber returning the whiskey after Pesach, which is forbidden for benefit, the rabbis seem to say that the robber can do that. So that is the opinion of Rabbi to Rav Chista. Rav Chista is saying no, that the rabbis are consistent and it's forbidden for benefit with regards to Pesach, or whether it regards to an animal that's sentenced to death. If you can't get benefit, hanoah, from it, you can't return it to the original owner in that state. Okay? So we're going to see what arguments are advanced at a later stage. Everybody clear? Does everybody have any questions?
Damon, sorry, just repeat the last. You can't return the article to the owner in the state that it can't be used in its normal way. Is that what you're trying to say?
No. So what I'm saying is there's two opinions. The first opinion is Rav Chista. He said that our Mishnah of Rabbi Meir seems to accord with Rav Yaakov. Because Rav Yaakov is saying that whether an animal is sentenced to death or not, you can return it to the original owner as is, because the sentence hasn't happened yet and it's delayed. Therefore, that's grama, that's indirect. If ever there's a delay in the reaction for an action, it's considered as if the robber is not responsible for the causation. Okay. Now, that is not what Rabba says. Rabba rejects it. Rabba says, look, that is just Rav Yaakov's opinion. And because what Rav Chisda is saying is that the rabbis are saying that it does matter, is that the minute there's a death sentence on the animal, you cannot return it to the original owner or sell it or consecrate it. The animal is now forbidden for any sort of benefit. And there seems to be a contradiction, Rav Chisda says, because in this case, the rabbis hold that there can be no benefit for something that's prohibited benefit, and he's seeming to say that's a problem, because with Pesach, the robber can return it as is and get the benefit for the no benefit, meaning he doesn't have to replace what is forbidden for benefit, but in the animal given sentencing does. And therefore, Rav Yaakov must be in collusion with the Mishnah, not the rabbis. And Rabba is saying something completely different, Kevin. He's turning around and saying, look, there's a reason why there's a double standard by the rabbis. Because you want to think that they're disputing the point that for things respect that are forbidden by for benefit, what is yours is before. Meaning is that, listen, I returned the object in a decent state, and the fact that you can't benefit from it is not my problem. What I stole, I returned it in the same physical condition. So Rabba says there's a different reason, and that reason that the animal has to be present in the sentencing. So if the custodian returns it to the original owner for the trial before handing it over to the judges, then he's not liable because the original owner can hide the animal away. But if he hands it over to the court, but if you're holding that the animal has to be there for sentencing, it's cost the person the animal. If you hold that the animal doesn't have to be there for sentencing, the custodian didn't do anything to the original owner, because either way the animal is sentenced to death. There can't be a benefit that's derived. Whereas, according to the rabbis, this robber can, in the case of Pesach, it's different. He never created that added problem. All he did is return it in the condition it was received in. So we're going to go through why that contradiction exists next time. All right, guys, I hope I explained Garmi correctly. Thanks, guys. Not so easy.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
No, that was a challenge. I'm so sorry.
Guys, have a great Shabbos.
You too.
Yeah, you guys too. Cheers.